Well, Cort, appreciate me with me today. Today we're going to talk about all things fertilizer, weed control, and how to start a division and everything in between. And so I know you represent Harrell's, and Harrell's is one of the sponsors in Green Industry Nation, and you represent Harrell's in the Carolinas, North Carolina, and South Carolina, and you're an expert on all things fertilizer and chemical, fertilizer and
I,
weed control. And so
I
I'll
guess expert's relative.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I'll turn the time over to you to give us a quick background on why we should listen to Court and some credentials that you have. But yeah, feel free to take it away.
Man, hey, I appreciate it. Again, my name's Cort Hall. I'm from Clover, South Carolina. I've lived in the Carolinas my whole life. One of these guys that never left. I don't know if I was confident enough to leave. I went to Clemson, got my 4-year degree in turf grass, and spent some time in the golf side. Spent some time kind of bouncing around on the ball field side of things, and then I got into actually fell into a job in between jobs. I was at the golf course. Long story short, I was in Atlanta working down there for a couple of years on the golf course, and then I went to work for a commercial lawn care company. I wanted to move back home towards Charlotte, and so I pulled a hose for them for a couple rounds of pre-emergent, and I got hired by a company called John Deere Landscape, which was Lesco, right? And worked there for a few years, and I was shoulder tapped by another fertilizer company. We ended up growing that. What I thought we did a decent little job. And then I was shoulder tapped by Harrell 3 years ago. So about kind of bounced around, man. I've sold a couple of fertilizer for a couple of different companies. Done it a couple of different ways. I really like working for Harrell. Harrell has been a great thing for me. They're employee owned. They take care of their guys. They got a great product. We have a great staff behind us of PhDs who, if I have an issue, I can bring it to them, and somebody smarter than me can help us figure out what's going on. And just a well put together, uh, well machine over here at Harrell. So that's kind of a little bit about me, man. I got 4 kids. Got a great wife. She puts up with a lot of my stuff, which is a ton of it. And yeah, man, it's wide open. Um,
Cool.
and I think you got me on here today because we're going to talk about starting a weed control company, fertilizer.
That's right. That's right. Yep. Yeah. Can you tell us what kind of opportunity there is with weed control and fertilizer company? Why should someone start one?
So I mean, I think there's a ton of opportunity out there in this. Um, and I think there's a lot of guys that there are guys that get it really quickly and move forward to it. And there's a lot of guys that I see here in the Carolinas that I think are just a little bit intimidated of it. It's not something you should be intimidated of. It's not that challenging. Um, it is more one of those things where you just find a guy like me, find a guy that works for Harrell, find a guy that works for whoever. It could be the man in the moon, whoever you trust with fertilizer, and let them take you where you need to go. Realistically, the fertilizer business, in my opinion, fertilizer weed control business is about 25% agronomy. It's really not that much agronomy. It's more customer service, how quickly you respond to email, text, phone calls. Do you pick the phone call up? It's a service based business. It's really not that challenging on the fertilizer side, in my opinion, if you get a guy that is worth his salt on the fertilizer end. Um, I also know that, the average man hour for mowing, you put 2 guys in a truck, each individual one of those, you might bill out 60 to 80 bucks per hour. So times that by two, 120 to 160, just throwing numbers at the wall here, versus a weed control truck with one man in a truck, you can go bill 200 or 300 bucks an hour. So it's extremely lucrative, high margins, don't have as many heartbeats, don't have as much equipment that you got to maintain. So it's one of those things to where it's really not that challenging either. It's easy to train. I mean, all you do is there's not that many variables involved. When you mow, you run a mow blow company, you got to be able to drive a truck, back a trailer, mowers, blowers, uh, string trim, right? And then you get into where you're probably doing shrubs, you're probably doing mulch, you're pruning. There's so many variables to where you've got to be good at a lot of different things. Where in reality, in fertilizer weed control business, man, jump off, grab this spreader, go push it around the yard a little bit, make sure you're doing what you're supposed to do. But there's not as many things to train on. Therefore, I think it's easier to scale. It's easier to hire for. So
Sure.
that's kind of the why, I think. I mean, everybody talks about hiring and how hard it is. I actually think fertilizer and weed control is easier to train.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Yeah, and you can pay more for it too. You can buy better labor with weed control
You
fertilizer.
absolutely can, because I mean you can get guys that have you can buy brain cells. Me and Ryan, the boy that comes to work with me every day, we laugh about buying brain cells, and brain cells cost money. But again, you do not need to train as much, so therefore you don't need to be the smartest guy in the room to push a spreader. It's really not that. The actual labor part of this, you push a spreader in the yard, stick a sign in the yard, take a picture of what you've done, you jump back in the truck and you drive. It's not a whole lot that really, in my opinion, goes into it. The technical stuff will happen when you're talking with your rep and you're building out your programs, which I'm sure we'll talk about at some point. That's all technical stuff. But your employee, I mean, if he knows how to put one bag on 10,000 square feet and do it properly, and he can hit the repeat button on that, there's really not that much to it. It's just intimidating because people don't know.
Right, for sure. That's true. And I know weed control fertilizer companies are pretty attractive to private equity companies too, because the margins are so great. It's less of a headache, typically. So it's a good opportunity for people to take advantage of for sure. But if someone were to try and start one, what's some of the first steps they would take? Cort, what have you seen?
Yeah, so if you're trying to start a fertilizer and weed control company, I've got a lot of opinions about this, but I mean, basically, we got to get the equipment, right? Starting out, you're looking at, I would probably buy a used truck, talking 125,000, 150,000 miles. I'm hoping we can get one of those for $10,000 to $15,000 on Facebook Marketplace, right? That kind of model. You can find something F250, long bed, single cab. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. We need this thing to crank and get us to A to B. I personally would go out and buy a 200 to 300 gallon tank. I like the 300 gallon tank because you can't put 300 gallons in a 200 gallon tank, right? But you can put 200 gallons in a 300 gallon tank. And the cost difference for that really isn't that much. When the amount that we're billing per 1,000 square foot, $9 to $15 a thousand, depending on where you're at, what you're doing. There's a lot of variables in that. That's a regional answer. But if a tank does 200,000 square feet, I mean, you're billing out $2,000 a day. Don't shortchange yourself because of $1,000, right? Let's make sure we get the proper equipment up front. So I mean, we got let's say that's $6,000 or $7,000. So we got a $15,000 truck, a $7,000 tank. I'm trying to go high here. We're at $22,000, right? So then we need a push spreader. Let's say that's $700, which is probably high. I personally like the Let's Go spreaders. Reason why is because Site One, they're generally easy to find the parts. And they're stainless steel. That's the pneumatic tires, the big ones, the big 80-pound spreader, like those. That's what I would do. Now you're going to have people have opinions on perfect spreaders, but this isn't a spreader talk. This is just how to get started, right? I would buy a backpack sprayer. Again, probably a $100 to $200 backpack sprayer, 4 gallon. And looking at all that, you're probably looking at borrowing from the bank $25,000, and that's high. Which that sounds like a lot, but I mean, realistically, you got guys running around with rigs that, $20,000 truck, $3,000 trailer, 2 $10,000 mowers, blowers, 2 heartbeats in the truck. There's a heck of a lot more overhead in mowing. So these guys are intimidating of borrowing 20, 25 grand and, financing that out or just building it yourself. You're intimidated over the wrong things. You got, $50,000 or $60,000 rigs running around with 2 heartbeats and, they're billing out $60 or $120 a man, or $120 for 2 guys in the truck, or $150 for 2 guys in the truck per hour, versus a guy that spends $25,000 and he's billing out $200 to $300 an hour like that. You see how that? I mean, you're making it's really not that big of a risk. I mean, you can always take this stuff. If it doesn't work out for you, you can take it and flip it. You bought it for $12,000, you can sell it for 10. I mean, realistically, you don't have a risk because you don't. Everything you buy, you're able to sell really quickly if it doesn't work out. But I've yet to have anybody that jumped into it that it failed in the past 12 years. If anything, they just scale. So that's the equipment. I'm a big believer. A lot of people don't like this, but the best way to starting out, let's say I go out today and I start, green lawn care, right? Well, I don't personally believe you become green lawn care until you start hiring employees. And before then, you're really court spraying yards, right? So the best way to pick up business starting out, in my opinion, is work Saturday. People get paid on Friday. They have money on Saturday. Saturday morning, they're walking their dog and they see you out working. You will make money because you're out there. The product's right there. You have we're getting the signs and stuff. You have the products on the ground. You can see what you're doing. You're out there. You're personal. You just wave at people. You be nice. You'll pick up people because you're out there working. Because most people want to work Monday through Friday, which is great. I understand why, but people with money go to work. We're at work, right? All of us are at work. None of us are at home ready to spend our money until Saturday morning. So I'm a big believer in taking Sunday, Monday off, and especially in the beginning, really pounding Saturday mornings and just meeting as many people as I can. I'm also a big believer in starting out. First thing you want to buy is the spray signs. There's some signs there's some places on the internet you can buy these. You get spray signs or R&D signs. You can go to either one of those. They can design you a sign that you can basically, have a phone number on there. Say we came out. All it is an opportunity for them to know you exist. The
Yeah.
number one reason why people don't do business with you is because they don't exist. I'm a firm believer in that. It's not because you do bad work. It's not because you're not attentive. It's not you're priced wrong. It's just because they don't know you. And so we want to make sure that people can get a hold of you and they know you're there and they know you're in the business. That's such a big part of it. I also believe, last little thought, and I'll turn it back to you and let you comment on some of this. Last little thought is, the first thing you do before you start spending a bunch of money on marketing is make sure your truck's wrapped. Make sure you have something on your truck that defines you going down the road. You want to be a stoplight. People say, hey, that's green lawn care. Now, I personally don't like the name green lawn care. I would probably never pick that name. I like names that jump out at you. My brother owns a company. It's called Hippo Turf Care. It's a big purple hippo going down the road. People know the hippo, right? So, I mean, I would pound that concept. Try not to use anything that mimics True Green or any of these large out of the box companies with green and white, like stick out, use big colors, bright. So that's how I would start. That's steps 1 through 4, probably.
Cool. I love it. A lot of good nuggets in there for sure. I like the Saturday suggestion. I did door-to-door sales for 5 years, and Saturday was always our best day. It's because people are home, people are home. Both spouses are home too. Both the decision makers are home. And so you could get quite a few sales there just from talking with people. And it's probably how you'll start out too, is that like, if you have 80 mowing clients, you're not going to be able to, that's not a full route for a weed control fertilizer company, so you got to talk to more people, and so working Saturdays is a good idea.
I also think when you start doing weed control and fertilizer, everybody's seen a mower pull up and drop off, but I mean, you're out there spraying something on the yard. It looks different, right?
Yeah.
It looks like a higher ended deal. You look like something about being on a yard when you're doing fertilization or weed control. Subconsciously, the person watching you thinks you're an expert versus the guy running the mower, running the weed eater, the blower. And so you automatically will gain more credibility because of just the action. You could be a guy out there that has no clue what you're doing. And that's okay. I deal with hundreds of them that do that. That's not the point. The point is you want to put yourself in situations where people perceive you as the expert, not just, hey, I'm out here cutting grass, and you'll get higher value work out of it and more density out of that.
Yeah, for sure. That's a good point. Yeah, they do see you as an expert when you're doing that. And when I was doing door-to-door sales, we would wear pants. We'd have like a little tool belt. People just see that as like an expert, and so I like that. I do have one question here for you, Cort. You mentioned the spreader and all that kind of stuff. What's your opinion on liquid fertilizer versus granular fertilizer?
Wow, we went right to the nuts and bolts of it. So I believe when you build these programs, there's opinion between both of them. They both work. You can be successful either way. I truly believe that the best success is when you use a combination of the two. I think I believe that the plant is designed to take up nitrogen via the root. Right. That's the way it was designed. It's been doing that for millions of years. I think sometime I'm forgetting. I'm gonna botch this. My internet's gonna kill me, but it'll be all right. Sometime in the 60s, I believe, is when we discovered that you could spray the plant and make it turn green. And I also believe that when they figured this out in the, it might be the 50s or 60s, doesn't matter. But when they figured this out that you could do this, um, that immediately became this is how a plant works. I know physiology of the plant, nitrogen only works up to the plant. The roots need nitrogen to grow too. So I think you do have healthier plants when you do some form of granular, as well as the liquid side of it. The liquid side of it to me is more productive. You can get your AIs out. You can get your weed control, your fertilizer. You can touch fertilizer. Get your wetting agents out. It's big in the Charlotte market right now. It's starting to become bigger in the Charlotte market. Considering we're so hot and dry. You can get your I say AI, talking about your insecticides and stuff. So you can do a lot of things in one pass, which is valuable as well. Not to make a big plug for Harrell, but we sell a product called Polyon. Polyon is a slow release technology that, it's exclusive to us. It's extremely reliable and it's extremely predictable. So I'm able to put out a fertilizer here, granular, and it may last the way over here. I may have two apps in between, hold my color, and get my AIs out in between. And so there's a little game that we're playing there to how to. I guess the question is, which one do you like better? I like them both. I think you have to build a program that matches up with what the end user has the ability to use and what their setup allows them to use, right? Then how many grass types do they have? So there's a lot of variables in that question. Which one do I like better? But I think you need to use both to a degree.
Okay, cool. No, I appreciate that. Okay. Yeah, so someone's went out and bought a bunch of equipment, right, to get ready to start a weed control fertilizer division. Now they're probably the next step they're probably looking at, or they probably it's probably simultaneous, but next step they probably need to look at is what kind of programs do I want to offer, and I'm sure it's area based, but what can you speak on that and what type of programs they should be looking at? What how many steps? What's involved in all that?
Yeah, so that's going to depend on your region, right? If you're in, let's say Massachusetts, Boston, right? You may get 5 or 6 apps a year. That might be all you can get because of snow. You might be pushing snow the rest of the year. But if you go down to Florida, you might get 10 or 12. Here are my guys that I deal with in the Carolinas. We generally offer 7, 8 round programs and 10 round programs, give or take. We do a couple different types of grasses. We're in the transition zone, so there's a couple variables that others don't have to deal with, right? We could go out on any given day and treat 4, 5 different types of grasses that are cool season. Not like they're all warm season. This could be, we have cool season and warm season, drastically different things. Like the stuff in this tank can kill this grass. And we're trying to kill this grass in this grass because of the weed. So it depends on your market. I think that's important when you start putting these programs together to understand what the customer wants. If you want to go out there and knock down the weeds in my market and do 3, 4, 5 apps a year, that's fine. You knock down the weeds, you want to cut grass and just basic, keep things under control. That's a play. If you want to chase the true green model of 6 to 8 rounds a year, I've got a lot of companies do that. And then I have those elite customers that, hey man, everybody's getting a fungicide on their fescues and everybody's getting basically what the 6 or 8 guys got. We're coming out there, every 35 days or right at 30 days, and we're going to do it 10, 12 times a year. There's no wrong answer here. It's really, what does your market allow you to do, and how much, what do you want to be? Do you want to just scale as a 7-app company, or do you want to scale as a high-end company? There's no wrong answer there. It's just depending on what your market will hold. Here in Charlotte, you can get 10 apps a year on fescue. You can get 8 apps a year on Bermuda. I see it all day long.
Are you seeing most companies adding a grub control in part of their steps there?
Grubs aren't a huge issue in our market. They're here, but it's not like it is in, say, Michigan, Ohio, right? If you're in Columbus, Ohio, white grubs are going to kill you. They're going to eat you up. In our market, you can get them. It's just not as intense. Our issue is, literally, because we're on the northern half of where you really want to grow warm season grass, right? And then we're on the southern, we're probably the last major metropolitan area in Charlotte to where you can grow fescue. and then you start getting down towards Columbia and Atlanta, it gets harder to grow because it's so hot. Our thing is more fungus, a lot of fungus on fescue, temp, and just water management in general. I think the two biggest enemies in lawn care are the mower and water. People don't understand watering. Either they water too much or too little, and they don't understand how to mow. So the moment you're not mowing grass anymore and you're treating for them, you're relying on them to cut their own grass. If they go on a week-long vacation, come back and scalp their Bermuda, and now it takes 3 weeks to recover, and you got this big brown patch that kind of looks off. Is it fungus? No, they just scalped it, hadn't recovered yet. It's going to take some time and extra water and all these other things to recover. And so it's a little bit different ball game the moment that you start treating yards, because you don't have your hands on them as closely. Does that make sense? If you decide not to cut grass,
Sure.
and just go straight into treating.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't
That
know if I
makes
answered
sense.
the question. I think I did. Maybe.
No, that's great. Yeah. And so if someone wanted, does Harrell's have resources for like guys, hey, if you want to start out, or does it make, it just probably just makes more sense to work through you as their rep, but do you guys send them stuff that's like, hey, this is some of the basics for starting or for a weed control fertilizer company. This is how long you wait after you apply before you should mow or some stuff like that, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I don't want to speak for every rep, but I will speak for the ones that I do communicate with. We have, we are a nationwide company. So if you want to deal with Harrell's and you're in Arizona, we got a guy. If you were in Texas, we got a guy. If you're in Mississippi, we got a guy. Boston, we got a guy. So I mean, they're all over the place, and they're all, all we sell is fertilizer, weed control. It's not like we're selling pipe irrigation, mowers, any of that other stuff. So this is all we do. And so we're very specific with it. So I mean, if you're looking for training, whether it be me or another rep, we can help you get to where you need to go. You just got to find the right guy. The other side of it too, Harold has spent a little money in training us. Getting some guys to come in and teach some of these reps about. We just did one in Alabama. I don't know, a few months ago, maybe it was January, and May, February. It doesn't matter. May, January, it doesn't matter. But brought 40 reps down there, and we went through how to build a weed control business. Because I'm a big believer, if you can't build these things on paper, I mean, I don't know if I would trust you to buy it. We got to be able to show you, like, hey, here's how we're going to do this. Here's the products you're going to use. Here's your cost. Here's how we're going to cost it to the customer. This is how you would do this. Be able to have the conversation we're having now, and then put it all on paper and say, look, dude, if you can follow directions, you can make money doing this. And I think that's what they taught us. That's what they were teaching in Alabama. It was really cool. The first time in 12 years that I've ever been a part of anything like that, where they're actively teaching the reps how to go build something like this, so we can bring it to our customers and show them, this is how this is done. So the answer is, find a local Harrell. I know the Harrell's guys, and if the Harrell's guy's not good, go find somebody else. Again, I mean, I would like to think that, the guys that I'm working with, the guys that I've met are great resources. The ones I've met are absolute rock stars. But, if it rubs you wrong, or go find somebody else. Just the key is you don't have to muscle your way through this thing by yourself. That's the biggest problem. Is I see guys go out and they don't want to ask for help, and I don't know where to find the information too. With Google and the amount of people that know, all you gotta do is reach out. The email, anybody can return an email, and there's 1,000 guys like me out there that are willing to help if you're just willing to ask the question. Again, the reason why people don't buy from you is they don't know you exist. The reason why people don't help you is because they don't know you exist. You gotta be the squeaky wheel. Squeaky wheel gets the oil. Be the squeaky wheel. Ask questions. Be willing to put yourself in an uncomfortable position. Right, Saturday mornings in uncomfortable positions. Cartoons and cereal are a heck of a lot more fun than banging on or saying hi to somebody walking their door at 9 o'clock in the morning. I get it, but if you're willing to put yourself in some uncomfortable spots, you're going to be in some really comfortable spots later on. And I've seen it.
I like that. A lot of good things you just said there, Corey. I hope people who watch this will write some stuff down. I think that's good.
I just hope I'm saying cool stuff, man. That's all I'm here for.
Yeah.
One or two cool quotes, and that's all I'm here for. And I'm going to go hang it up.
Yeah, you're flowing, man. I mean, you cut all this stuff up and make some good videos from it. But
as long as it's about fertilizer, you're welcome.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. I got maybe one or two more questions here for you, Cort, before we
Yeah.
call it. You kind of touched on this just a little bit already, and that was probably just not asking for help. But what's maybe one or two common problems or stumbling blocks people run into when it comes to starting a weed control division or just running one?
Man, I tell you, one of the things I'm passionate about that I see a ton of, you know, guys try that. How do I word this? So the first thing you need to do is get a CRM of some sort. It's not a cost. It is a way to stay organized. If you're not organized, you can't scale. There's going to be a day to where even if you're cutting grass, you don't have a CRM, find one. Just find one. I don't care if it's Jobber. I don't care if it's, there's 1,000 of them out there. You know, I personally, for the weed control side, I like spray. Big spray guy. I vetted it. Those guys over there are great. I'm not here to sell spray, but they're sharp. Real Green, another great product. It's a little more pricey, a little more in depth. You can get a lot out of it. It's got more bells and whistles than spray. Spray's probably more, meat and potatoes. Um, guys like Jobber. I don't love Jobber because when I don't want to say interview, but I vetted all these. Obviously, if I'm going to talk about this, I need to know what the heck I'm talking about. Talked with Jobber and I said, is this a viable option for my weed control guys? And you can't pull square footages. So if you can't pull square footages on Jobber easily, quickly, I'm sure you could find them and add them up, get them in. And there's ways you can get around it. But if you can't do it easily,
I
to me,
don't I
that's a
don't know
liability.
I don't know a ton of people who run on Jobber who have a weed control fertilizer division.
No, and
There's
that's
not a lot.
they'll
Yeah.
run a job on mowing. I've got guys that do it on mowing.
Sure.
I
Yeah.
ran into a customer in Columbia, South Carolina, two of them actually. They buy about a truckload of fertilizer a piece, and I'm not going to say their name. It doesn't really matter. I hope they listen to this because they'll laugh. I said this, and I walked in the first meeting with them. I said, "Man, boys, y'all are missing the boat." And they looked at me like I had four heads. I mean, these guys are billing out $1 million a year. I mean, they're big companies. I'm telling them they're wrong. And then they jump into some of these CRMs and they start nodding their head and said, all right, well, I see what he's talking about. But had I not done my research on CRMs, I wouldn't have known to walk in there. Again, if I can't build this business, why should you buy it from me? Right? Why should you listen to anything I have to say? So
Yeah.
that's always been my approach, is gain credibility by learning the business. But going back to my point, there's going to be a day if you decide you really want to scale and you really want to get into this, where you're not going to remember everybody's name. You're not going to know their addresses. You're not going to, in the beginning, you know everybody by first name. But the moment you put an employee in a truck, maybe two, and now that you got them going, you got 300, 400, 500 yards, you're not going to know who John Davis is. And
Yeah.
at that point, you do not have it between your ears anymore, and it's going to be impossible to articulate what you want done to the guy doing the work. It's better to build it the right way in the beginning and stay organized. Disorganization is a product of the devil. It's a good way to put yourself in a bad position in a hurry by not being organized. So I'm very passionate about getting a CRM, interview these guys, ask questions to others. If you're a guy running around if you're a guy running around doing this on pencil and paper and a notebook, you're making life harder than it needs to be because you're intimidated to learn something new. It's going to take about 100 hours to learn a software program. I took that from Gary Vee. Not a big Gary Vee guy, but I like that concept. It takes 100 hours of anything to really understand anything, right? And so I think that's one hurdle I would definitely be getting over. Another one is, don't be intimidated to ask for credit cards on file. Get a 3% service charge, man. Just mark it up, eat it, move on. Don't chase money. Chasing money is another thing that you do not want to get into. You get to where people are owing you money because you're not auto billing cards, or you're not collecting money. You're creating more work that you are actually not getting paid for. The most important part of all this is collecting the money. If you don't collect the money, you're going to be sitting on the sidelines really quickly. And so you want to make sure that A, you can stay organized, B, you can bill people and get paid quickly. Don't be scared to ask for raises. Every year, I'm going to go up on chemicals because they go up on me. We've got to. These prices are set. So when that happens, if you don't go up on your customer a percent, $2, quarter, whatever the case may be, to make sure your margins are correct, you'll slowly make less money, and it'd be hard to recoup. So you always want to make sure you're giving a small price increase, or you're, you know, I was told by a guy a long time ago, you want your margins plus your growth to equal 40%, is what I've been told. Now, I don't know if that's what y'all believe. It doesn't matter. But if you make 20 margins and you grow 20%, that's great. If you make 40 margins and grow 0%, you did okay. That's a general, back when the story went, back when Amazon was growing, they made 0 margins and grew 40%. But they knew because they were growing 40% year after year after year, that eventually they would flip flop that, and they were going to turn it on, and they were going to make a killer amount of money. Now, there's also a point to where you can't just keep growing and not making money because you run out of reserves, right? You've got to keep track of your numbers and make sure that your growth and your margins, ignore the 20. You're going to make more than 20 doing weed control. But the point of it is your growth and your margins line up to where the bank account supports the growth. So that way, when you want to do, a stagnant year, heavy growth year, you've got money in the bank reserves to push that growth, stagnant growth. You're not just going to go grow, particularly when you get later into it, because the horse will just quit running on you.
Yeah. Makes sense. Yeah. Probably good for these guys to invest in a bookkeeper to get a monthly P&L to start keeping track of that kind of stuff, And so I think a lot of guys currently do, but if you haven't, I would get one, and some of these bookkeepers don't send you a P&L unless you ask for it. So I would say, hey, look, I just want a monthly P&L like same day, same time of the month, and I'm going to review that and look at it. I'm going to look at some of this stuff and see where I'm being super inefficient on, what am I spending so much money on, and what are my sales projections? Like, how can I set some goals to make this a little bit better? I think that's an important thing for guys to look at.
And that's another thing a CRM is going to do for you, because now you can track your time versus that P&L, and you can figure out, am I actually making money? How much did I bill out on Tuesday? How long did it take? What yards am I making money on? And then you can figure out internally, like, man, maybe driving 25 minutes to go, for instance, mow this 1 yard or put fertilizer on this point. Maybe I should be charging a little bit more because I'm losing 20 minutes there, I lose 40 minutes a day, at $60 a man hour, that's $40, right? And so we're losing because we're behind a windshield. So, but these CRMs and all these things will help you track that. Knowing your numbers is, you'll hear that any business guy that's worth his salt, and he doesn't tell you to know your numbers, you need to find another business guy or a new guy. I mean, that should be, Carson, I know y'all are probably pushing that in the Green Industry Nation Plus group that y'all created, right? I mean, if you're not talking about that type of stuff and how to track and how to think about that type of stuff, you need to have that conversation. When that may not be me. I mean, I'm not a certified business consultant, but I've seen enough of these to know what right and wrong looks like. Carson, you and I guess Chester are going to know 10x about that than I'll ever know. And that's okay. I'm not supposed to be an expert in it, but I need to know when you're failing so I can get you to somebody that can help you. Is my way I view it.
Yeah. We talk about KPIs and metrics quite a bit. It's just, that's how you know if you're thriving or not, and you can set goals and expectations from that too. And so, especially if you're going to hire a manager down the road, your manager's got to know what he's doing, and you can't just be like, operate this company. You got to give him some goals of like, this is where we want to be safety wise, efficiency, quality, like all those things. We got to have some metrics behind so that he knows what to obtain and the standard that you're measuring him against. You're like, hey, look, you're not doing as well as we want to be. And you won't know that unless you're measuring it, and having those
you got
KPIs.
To give him a way to understand if he's doing his job. I mean, otherwise he doesn't know. He's just in there going through the motions, and we've all had that job. I've been that guy, to where you didn't know exactly what your responsibilities were, and there was no way to track it. And if you don't, you just threw out the acronym KPI. If you're listening to this or watching this, you don't know what the acronym KPI. That's probably a good starting point. Like, let's figure out what that is, what that means, and how we track that, and just ways to make sure that we're healthy. And again, that's not going to be done through me. I'm a fertilizer guy. At the end of the day, I talk about killing weeds. But a guy like Carson or a guy like Chester, or there's other guys in the industry. I'm not even going to say these are the only two guys out there, but these guys are valuable. You can't look at them as a expense. These are assets. You're investing in your company, and you're making sure your money's flowing the right way. There's a lot of value to that.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Cort. Yeah. And measuring those
That wasn't a
KPIs.
completely shameless plug. I mean, there was a little value in the Green Industry Plus there.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's all good stuff. And we, yeah, it's measuring those KPIs, starting to like dive into that a little bit is kind of makes business a little bit more fun too for you. But now it's like, okay, I got something I can look forward to and achieve, you know. And so, but that we met with Jim Houston. He's a big time consultant in the industry. We met with him yesterday in Green Industry Masterminds, and he mentioned that one of the biggest opportunities is weed control and fertilizer, but it's the other opportunity is more furthering your education here, and that's what we're doing here. Is like, hey, let's further your education, and weed control fertilizer department. Like guys were far and few between who were making $1 million 30 years ago with your lawn care weed control fertilizer company. And now guys are starting to get it more and more. And I think it's because of the furthering education from it. It's like, hey, look, let's avoid years of headache by listening to Cort talk about, hey, this is how you start a weed control and fertilizer company. This is like the benefit of it. This is the benefit of social media too. And so, Cort,
Yeah, I mean,
before
the
we,
hardest part is just getting started.
yeah,
I mean, it's taking the first step. It's saying, hey, I'm going to do this. And here is week one, I'm going to get a truck. I mean, it's funny. Um, I, as a, I don't know how to say this, not saying, I mean, as a sales rep, I sell fertilizer for a living. That's how I make money, right? Everybody, I guess, realizes that. It didn't get real until I started having kids, right? Once that debt started happening, I don't want to call my kids debt. That's a terrible way of saying that. But once that extra expense started happening, it's amazing how different life becomes. All of a sudden, I'm watching Service Autopilot. I'm watching Real Green. I'm watching how to build these things. I'm paying attention to the industry because it helps you sell more fertilizer, right? Common sense. But, you know, you go out and you borrow that $10,000 to buy that truck, and now you got a payment coming in. Now all of a sudden things start getting real. A lot of people don't like debt. I don't mind small amounts of debt because it sets a fire underneath you that you would not have if I had $10,000 in the bank and I just gave you 10 grand. Now you would hurt, but you wouldn't feel it monthly. I got to make a payment, and that sets a it creates a little different fire. Now, I'm not telling everybody go and get in debt. Don't y'all go borrow $1 million and because Cort said to, and everybody hates me on the internet now. That's not what I'm telling you. But I don't mind a tad bit of debt to create a fire. Now, obviously, I want you to pay that off as quick as you can once you get started and once that fire gets rolling, because then your fire is going to be different. It's going to be, I got to get this work done, or I'm going to try to grow to 100 customers. I mean, if you're not growing rapidly to 100 customers in the fertilizer and weed control business, you're probably going to be chemical broke, as I call it, because you're not going to have enough square footage to justify buying the whole bottle. And then, you bought a $200 bottle and you only billed $200 for it, and you broke even, and then it's sitting on the shelf with 3/4 of it. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a point to where you have to grow in order to break even on the chemicals you buy. So, you want to be rapidly, I'd say 100's probably the mark. When you still are probably in your own company, and you could be watching this, and you could be a guy that changes tires for a living, right? And you're wanting to do something part time. Don't get into mowing. Do this. You know how often mowing guys get to go on vacation if they're a one-man operation in the summertime and they're cutting grass? They don't get to go on vacation. These are 6-week intervals, so I get all my work done 1, 2, and then I got 4 weeks off. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can schedule this stuff. The grass, you're not a slave to the yard. In South Carolina, when Bermuda's growing all summer, you're a slave to that grass. You have to show up every week, or somebody has to cut it for you. It's hard to go on vacation. Whereas you can put fertilizer on the ground and not come back for 4 weeks. So if you're looking for a part-time gig, or you're looking for, don't cut grass. That's harder, in my opinion, because you become a slave to it. And then your equipment starts breaking, and that's when it really gets hard. It's usually pretty good until the equipment breaks. Then when the equipment breaks, you realize you didn't make any money, and then it gets harder, or you didn't make as much money. You have way more overhead.
Yeah, for sure. No, that makes sense. Cool. I love it, Cort. Thank you very much. Any final thoughts from you before we close out this meeting?
Any final thought? I would say that, again, I talk fast. I talk in circles. I get it. I'm not that guy. Like, I get it. But what I would say is that there are people, take myself out of the equation. again, you got dudes in Florida. I know Harrell, like I know my people, right? But even my people aside, you can be the man in the moon. Find somebody that knows what they're doing, ask the right questions, be the squeaky wheel, and just ask for help. Ask for help within the industry. There's probably guys on this page. If you ask the right questions, you'll get help. And make sure you're getting information that people from that are qualified, right? You don't go ask a guy that you're beating in golf how to swing the golf club, right? If you're beating him, don't ask him for advice. Go find people that are better than you. Go find people that have done it before. Go find people that, you know, have seen it done before, have seen the growth, and work off of what they're telling you. Don't try to do this alone. There's way too many people. We got a group of 5,000 or 50,000 people in Green Industry Nation. There's some dudes in here that probably aren't talking that are really, really smart. We just need to find them, right? And they might be in the Green Industry Plus or the Mastermind group or whatever that looks like. But go find a Carson, go find a Ryan Thompson, or go find a Tyler Otero in New Jersey. Somebody was commenting on the post last night. Like, these are the guys locally that know what they're doing and can give you the keys to the castle. You just got to go reach out and go find them. And I know my guys, the guys that I've been working around, I say my guys, I don't know them. I know about 40 or 50 of them. The guys I've met are sharp. You don't come to work for Harrell unless you know what you're talking about. Now, that could be said for a lot of other companies too. Just make sure it's not a guy that's selling stone and pavers, and go find a fertilizer guy and ask questions and use them, because ultimately that's, you know, frankly, if you ask a bunch of questions and you don't buy anything, I think you'll come back, but we're going to be less likely to want to help a guy that doesn't want to help us. It's how we make money. So it's very give and receive. When you grow, you go from 10 bags to 100 bags. Well, we grow. So we want to see you get put in good positions to where you make more money. At least that's how I treat my guys. You know, it's beneficial for me every time we have a conversation that a light bulb goes off. And so that's what I would say is just don't try to do it alone. It's not worth it. You'll do way better by just being the squeaky wheel and asking the right questions. And again, you can get on Harrell's website, Google your zip code, and you can find a sales rep. And there's probably one in your state.
Cool. Yeah, that was my last question for you, is how they reach out to you. And I know you're on our Facebook group, so you can probably have people search Cort Hall in there and reach out to you. But it sounds like Harrell's got a pretty good website for you to search that as well.
Yeah, I mean, here's the reality. If you want help, I would say if you're in the Facebook group, and I'm sure everybody that's watching this this isn't getting posted to YouTube or anything, right? It's gonna be Facebook. If you're in the Facebook group, man, just send me a message. If I'm not the guy, I'll put you in contact with the guy or a guy that I trust. You may not, you know, this is not our first rodeo, man. We've done business on the internet. It's, you know, you ask questions and you want help, I can put you in front of somebody that knows what you're talking about, or at least can get you dangerously close. And that's not a problem at all. Just reach out.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. Love it. Thank you, Cort. Appreciate it. A lot of great knowledge in there. I think
let me tell you,
great
get fired up. First one ever for GIN. Let's go.
That's right. Yeah. It's good, man. I'll post the recording and everything. And appreciate you, Cort. Thanks for everything. And we'll have to do this again.
Thanks, brother. Have a great day.
Thank you too.
Bye.
Bye.